You're watching Maine Biz Sunday, Maine's business news source.
Welcome back. We're continuing our Rapid Fire Sunday show, and here to help us sort through the issues are John Mann, Dean of the University of Maine School of Business, Nicole Witherby from the Maine Center for Economic Policy, and Steve Bowen from the Maine Heritage Policy Center. All right, let's continue on. We had a good first session. The next one I want to bring up is just get a real quick response from you about are we out of the recession or not? Ben Bernanke, the recession is very likely over, he says. Really? On September 30th, Maine Biz Daily asked its subscribers if their business situations heading into the fourth quarter refutes or supports Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke's recent comment that the recession is, quote, very likely over. 61.5% disagree with Ben Bernanke's claim, 29.4% agree, and 9.1% were undecided. And here are two quotes I thought were interesting. One, we have noticed a definite improvement in our business beginning almost with this second week in July. And another quote from a subscriber was, we now define prosperity as the diminished degree of job loss, question mark. Lewis Carroll would have really had a field day with this cast of characters. Okay, so where do you weigh in on, are we really out of this or what?
Triumph of hope over substance.
Okay.
Basically, we're hoping, the unemployment situation is still terrible. And by the way, we're not even looking at the underemployment situation where you have people who are making $120,000 and they're making 40 now or 30. We're not even addressing that. Or the people pulled out. Right. We don't count them.
Yeah.
That's I always thought it was amusing. If you're no longer looking for a job, you don't.
Although that's
count
always
it.
the case.
Right. Yeah. Right. If we just had an economist here who could weigh in on this, I don't know. So what do you think,
I'm just
Nicole?
going to say that the statement is much to do about nothing in some ways, because really what he's talking about is just this technical definition that many economists use of GDP growth for over 2 quarters.
So was he just sending signals? Was he trying to, was it just for the feel-good part of it?
No, I think that there are signs that we have kind of bottomed out. And instead of seeing a drop in GDP, we're seeing a slight incline. But that does not mean that what most of us see as a recession is over.
And I think people are looking at broader issues that don't seem to have a resolution, looking at the national debt, looking at the potential for inflation from the amount of sheer cash that's being generated down in Washington, a lot of uncertainty around these federal programs and the direction that the federal government is going in. So even if you're right, we've got some technical things that maybe we can hang our hats on. I think most people don't feel as though we've got an economy that's generating sustainable jobs. We're worried about going into some other kind of bubble. We've been through a couple of these bubbles already. They've been tremendously destructive. We don't seem to be getting a handle on the health care issue, the debt issue. We've got $56 trillion worth of debt out there with Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, national debt. And that's on the federal level. It's just staggering. And nobody has a plan.
Ben had me feeling good. You're bringing me down.
There are plans, but the first thing that you have to do to deal with the deficit whatsoever is to deal with health care reform, because that is the single biggest driver of our deficit. If we don't control costs, over 10 years, we'll double the amount of healthcare spending, and so that's number one. And I think that that's what the president has been out there saying. And
I'm going to take us on to the next one, because this is one I know you're going to weigh on. This is your issue here. Next issue. Conservative think tank targets government waste. I love that. A think tank.
I know. I wish we had written that.
Gosh. The Maine Heritage Policy Center released the updated version of the, quote, the book Augusta doesn't want you to read, a summary of what the group considers questionable state government spending. The conservative think tank highlighted $2 billion in spending over a 5-year period that it characterized as, quote, waste, mismanagement, and inefficiency in government. And that was quoted in the Kennebec Journal just last month. Okay, so I throw that out to the group. Is that correct? Does that paint the right picture? What do we learn from that? We're going to let them go first, Steve.
All right.
Okay. Go ahead.
You want me to go first?
I do.
Well, let me just say I hadn't read the book before, the report before
the
this
so-called
week.
Piglet book.
The Piglet book. I had not read that before. I didn't know about it. But I went through it, and I think that on one hand, it's always great to have some level of transparency and to have some mechanisms so that people can kind of see where state government is going and what we're spending money on. What I really would have liked to have seen in it was some context. I feel like that adds everything. You can't talk about like bond spending and the investments we're making in that as overspending and abuse or fraud or anything of that characterization without talking about what the returns are. It is an investment, so it's irrelevant if you don't talk about what those bonds were spent on and whether you saw some return on that and whether that return was bigger than the investment.
I always find the things the Maine Heritage Policy Center does provocative. I think it's a start of a debate. It's not the end of the debate, and I don't think it should be the end of the debate. At times, I wish the center would focus a bit more, and I think that they could be a good broker of information and data to start the argument in healthcare, for example. But at times when, the center seems to switch from topic to topic pretty quickly, and I think that it'd be nice if they kept some of their capital in one.
Well, I think there's an issue coming up in November, too, that may drive some of that topic switching. Steve, go ahead.
Well, I mean, understand, first of all, that the Piglet Book is a collection based on research that we've already done on a lot of it. We've done a tremendous amount of work on state employment. We know, for instance, that state employees are paid, generally speaking, much better than private sector folks here in the state of Maine, and the benefit packages especially. We've done research outside the Piglet Book that then was brought into the Piglet Book. And we see this, I mean, we have a Center for Government Transparency. We operate the MaineOpenGov.org website, which has all kinds of state data. And we feel our responsibility is to get data out there, to get information out to people, to present it. And the Piglet Book is a collection of different things, and we have lots of different resources that we put into that as a way to sort of...
Correct?
Oh, I think so. I mean, we listed all the debt that the state has because we don't believe that most people know what that level of debt is. And we specifically talked about some of the constitutionally questionable borrowing that's been going. We have something in state government most people have never heard of called the Government Facilities Authority, which borrows money to build capital projects in Maine without going out to the voters.
You're not actually putting out there what that money is being spent on, and so.
Well, the return. I thought you had a good comment. I thought, Nicole, what's the return on that?
Well,
I can show what has been the return.
That's a question for policymakers. This is us putting information out there to voters. We do the same on our MaineOpenGov website. All of state contracts, every dollar that the state spends is on that website. You may decide that $80,000 is a reasonable amount to spend on bottled water in a given year by state government. I don't know if it is, but we put it out there, and we're going to let voters and taxpayers decide whether that's.
But it's hard to make those decisions unless you can give some sort of comparison or put it in some kind of context.
And we do that with national averages on a lot of the information.
And just to add to that, even the, there's a note of increasing number of state employees, and where the terminology used is actually kind of extreme. It's dramatic increases and overspending and bloating, and we've shed 1,000 state employee jobs in the last 4 years.
We've shed 1,000 state
grown
employee positions.
And
many of those positions were completely vacant. I was on the Appropriations Committee when we did this. These are positions that have been kept in state agencies for years to keep their budgets up.
What the report states
actual
is
flesh
growth.
and blood human being was in those positions. There was an empty chair. There was no one coming to work.
So it's attrition, but
positions.
you're still not
We didn't
growing.
let go people. We let go positions.
I'm going to stop it there because we're going to come back and talk some more about that. We're out of time for this segment, but I am going to continue this discussion in our afterthought segment. We're going to keep you around for that, and we're going to talk about a couple other issues, too. This one, school consolidation issue. We're going to go back and cover a couple more things, especially the healthcare piece. I think we want to get into that a little bit more as it affects the economy. So stay here. Stay with us. I appreciate that. Thank you all. If you'd like to hear more, go to mainbiz.biz and click on the Maine Biz Sunday logo. Check out the extended and candid conversations in our Afterthought segments that's only available on the web. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Maine Biz Sunday is made possible in part by funding provided by the Finance Authority of Maine and the Maine Department of Economic and Community Development.